through. So first of all, sorry about the kerfunkle. It sometimes happens. If this is your first time to the Bridge Club, thank you so much for coming. We are very excited that you are here. For those of you who do not know, the Bridge Club, we're all about this virtual engagement. We're the first community to ever connect, inspire the profession, and my partner and I truly believe that there's nothing that can't be solved over a glass or a beverage of something. So today is a very special Bridge Club. Yes, I'm reading this to make sure I don't get it wrong. You will note we've muted everybody. This was done on purpose because we want to make sure that all of the content is covered. If you have a question or a comment, use the chat today. We will take every question and every comment and carry it over to the conversation for tomorrow. We want to make sure that we have a very clear and concise discussion today, not discussion, more of a presentation on each side of the issue of the Veterinary Nurse Initiative. To ensure all is fair, I will tell you that both groups met repeatedly and we agreed on several things of behavior, if you will, or rules of engagement. The first was we were going to do a coin toss, but we chose not to do a coin toss because you're going to note here that one of our speakers has to leave early. So by defaulting, the opposing side is going to go first. There will be, again, no questions today. And that each side was allowed exactly 20 minutes. So they will not be interrupted. If they complete early, then that's on them, but there will be no interruption on it. Okay, so Brenda and I will also make this video available within the next 24 hours. This video will be able to be downloaded and shared, so please make sure that you share it with your colleagues. There is no cost or code required today because this is being brought to us by Banfield. So thank you, Banfield. Truly appreciate it. And so before I introduce who our guests are today, I do want to start with our toast. So if everyone would raise your glass. Okay, there is an old saying that says that we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Today, I ask you to put this all to the test and join us in a truly incredible discussion to listen to the issues that are most critically important to understand for our profession. So with that, let's listen today. Cheers.
Here. Here. Can you hear me, Catherine?
I can hear you. Fabulous. Woo! Okay. So
and we have, so he's successfully here. Yay, Mark.
Okay, great. So we have 5 folks today. We're going to first start with our opposing side, which is they are the most amazing women that I've had the glorious opportunity to meet as a result of this engagement. We have Katie Waddell, who's an LVT and a VTS. Do I need to say anesthesia as well on that? Do I? I don't know.
Well, yes, I have 2. One's in emergency critical care and one is in anesthesia analgesia.
Perfect. And then we have Patricia Zena, who's an RVT. Raise your hand or wave your hand there, Patricia. Patty, Patricia, I love to keep changing my way I'm introducing her. Then we also have with us, we have Ed Carlson, who's a CVT, a VTS in nutrition, and a member of the VNI working group. Along with him is Allie McIntyre, who is the Vice President of the Animal Policy Group, and they will be representing the pro side. We will be having a summary and access to all of the resources. I do want to point this out too. There will be resources available if you are on the pro side. If you're on the con side, we have resources. So we will be actually posting those into the chat so that everyone has access to all the information, and we will be emailing it out to you all. But we will be having Mark Cushing of the Animal Policy Group doing a recap at the end. This is purely for you all to make your own decision on where you stand on this issue. We are not here to convince you on either side. We really just want to make sure that we're being as informative as possible. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Katie and Patricia, and we will officially start the timer, and I promise you, you get your full 20 minutes. So we will figure it all out. Okay, so here we go. It's on. You're on the clock.
Okay, so I am starting, and I'm Patricia Zena. I'm an RVT in California, as mentioned. So in California, we have title protection since 2011. That was passed. and also a defined scope of practice for RVTs. But I've watched for the last 8 years as veterinary practices, and in particular, veterinarians, continue to underutilize RVTs and show a lack of recognition for the title, calling all support staff techs, allowing assistants to perform tech-specific tasks regularly. I won't work for veterinarians who do that, but there are many who do. It really contributes to a distinct lack of public awareness regarding what an RVT is and how we earned our title. I've also worked in 2 practices where RVTs were called nurses. And it didn't automatically lead to an increased esteem or respect because of that title. And it did really nothing to contribute to our clients' understanding of what we do and how we became credentialed. The ANA, American Nursing Association's opposition and willingness to fight to keep the title nurse, which is protected by them. They fought for protection in at least 39 states. They fought to keep it exclusive to human medicine, and that is well known. Lobbying against the ANA particularly comes at a considerable cost, not only financially, but also giving rise to an adversarial association between technicians and nurses. As I understand the VNI, it's set out in 3 phases. Phase 1 being a change in title only. I think those resources would better be devoted to increasing public awareness of our credentials and scope of practice. The main problem with technician recognition is the public don't know who we are and how we got here. And I know that Katie has some specific statistics and ideas about titles. So Katie, what say you?
Okay, so what I've done is I've looked at the NAVDA mission statement as well as the VNI position statement to see how the combination of the 2 are working best to represent all of the technicians in the United States. So the first NAVDA stated mission is to strengthen the profession. In my opinion, and those that I have visited with who are out working in the field, the VNI has not achieved a strengthening of our profession by creating a unity. Instead, it's fracturing. Now, I appreciate the resource that was submitted from the VNI last night about the NAVDA 2818 survey. And they received a total response on the survey regarding utilization of technicians as well as the title change. And they had a total response of 4,723. Of that number, 759 were NAVDA members. 3,964 respondents were not NAVDA members. So good on you, NAVDA and VNI, for reaching out and trying to achieve contact with as many technicians in the field as possible. I did find a United States labor report that indicated that there were 103,000 technician positions in the United States in 2016. And this encompassed not only practice, academia, research, and of course, the all-inclusive other. So if we break that down, and in my opinion, a conservative estimate of that 103,000, 10% of those actually require or are occupied by a credentialed technician, then unfortunately the outreach to technicians in the United States by NAVD and VNI survey is less than 50%. So I find that disheartening on that side, but I appreciate the fact that they did reach out and have response to greater than 4,000 people. So in fairness to the totality of technicians working in the field, and especially the credentialed technicians, because everybody is a technician pretty much if you ask in any practice on any given day, should we not then back up and reassess, see how we can best increase the outreach to veterinary technicians in the United States? So instead of strengthening, we're still not achieving an outreach. And with those percentages, part of your strengthening mission statement says that you're going to be the credible source. I'd like to see you bump that up and collaborate more with the state entities, not just the state technician associations, because unfortunately not all states have associations formed. NAVDA's second mission statement is advocate for awareness, and that's incorporated into the VNI statement as well. Hooray. However, it is not the primary, or it's not listed as the primary goal or the initial goal for the VNI, which is, if you go 1, 2, 3, title change is the first initiative to be acted upon. One of the biggest pushbacks from the ANA is that the Nursing Association wants to see a comprehensive educational requirement for all credentialed technicians. With our AVMA committees, we've achieved that for our graduate technicians. However, the public does not know that. The ANA does not know that. So public education to the people that I have visited with is preeminent before we start going for a title change. And I personally don't have a problem with title change. I've already had 4 because I've been in the profession since a graduate technician in 1976. I've had 4 different titles. So I don't care about that. But what we need to do is, can we better direct the amount of money that is being spent on going to the state legislatures? And I read, and I forgot which resource it was, that it costs approximately $250,000 a year for the VNI to go through the process of title unification and recognition by the state legislature. How much more progress could we make with the public if the AVMA and NAVDA V&I worked with the existing state associations, put that money into educating the client as to who is actually providing care for their patients. The title nurse itself is just one, in many instances, one small facet of what we do in our day-to-day job task. Yes, it's an easily recognizable job. However, if you ask a member of the public, what's an EMT? Emergency medical technician. They understand that role and that phraseology of technician within the medical profession. So those of us who are in emergency critical care, you know, my job is, part of me is an EMT. Part of me is a paramedic with advanced skills of being able to capture airways and this type of thing. We're also charged as well as trained in laboratory procedures. If you look at the nursing curriculum, and we do have similarities with anatomy, physiology, we've got, jurisprudence, but to carry on further technical nursing skills, laboratory, radiology technician, mention radiology technician to any woman over the age 40 and they automatically know what that person does. And they understand, yeah, grin at me, Catherine, and the training that individual has received in order to do that vital function. We can talk about, if you want to get into the realm of cardiology, an electrophysiology technician is a technician who actually programs that pacemaker that's planted in a human. So for those of us who are fortunate enough to go play with the cardiologist on a regular basis, as a patient on the human side, I understand the role that electrophysiologist plays. So I'm not just a nurse, and I don't like the word just, but it's not encompassing. It does not indicate our education, our training. So if we were able to better emulate our neighbors to the north, the Canadians, they push and educate client awareness, not just during National Technician Week. They do this year round. They've got a beautiful poster. Charlotte Wack from VSPN came up with an absolutely lovely trifold client education pamphlet that does give a much better idea of our training, our qualifications, and our job roles in our day-to-day life. Hang on. So, yes, should we push for more client education? Absolutely. Could that $250,000 a year be better spent? You know, if we spent that money for 2 years, improved the perception and understanding of who and what we are, we might better be able to work with the American Nursing Association to have support a title change. So that might be money better invested. Okay, so going back to NAVDA mission statement is to, excuse me, comparative value of credentialed personnel. People have asked, will a title change already?
Yes.
Sorry. This is me, people.
I'm just
This is me.
Club.
Okay. Oh, those people that are watching know me, and that's me. You know, changing our title to nurse is not going to guarantee better acceptance, you know, an increase in wage. Can we, as a national group, work with those states? There are 5 states in the United States that have no credentialing process at all. So if we're going to be totally inclusive of all 5 states, let's educate the clients, let's educate, you know, work with the nursing association. Let's work with these states to develop some type of credentialing process and incorporate these technicians into their practice act. There are 11 states that are not governed or credentialed by either the State Veterinary Association or their veterinary medical board. So can we work with those 16 states, bring them into the fold so that we are truly representing all 50 states on the same level playing field? If we're going to get any kind of backing from American Nurses Association, and they've got a 2 million membership in their association. So they have a pretty loud voice. So can we work with public education? Can we work with state associations to uplift and bring in and support those technicians who are already working in the field? And then once we've accomplished that, then let's readdress and reassess a title change. Okay, that's me.
Okay, so are you, Patricia, are you adding any additional?
I have nothing to add. Do I have
You have
time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Sorry, Patty.
No, that's fine. I think that Katie covered all of the things that we discussed as and what we heard from other veterinary technicians who are concerned with the title change. And yeah, I just think, yes, we do have 4 different titles. That's an issue. Uniting under one of those titles seeing like using phase 1 to do that. Maybe that would be a direction to go. I think there are more things to consider, and I don't think that it seems as if in the surveys that have been sent out that there haven't been responses. The percentage of response has not been high. So I don't know that it really even represents a high percentage of NAVTA members. the first survey, 54%, I don't really consider that a resounding, voice for the VNI.
There is one question really quick that I said we weren't going to do questions, but I do think it's valid. There is, can both Katie and Patty talk about your role in the profession just really quick so that people understand why we kind of selected the two of you to also be our speakers in a positive way. I think it's, we didn't, other than me saying your titles, I didn't give a lot more. So we'll give an extra minute so you guys can quickly do that if that'd be possible.
To be honest, I'm not sure why Ken said, Katie, would you? Other than the fact that he knows that, yes, I have opinions and I have no problem speaking with others. I've been credentialed prior to the conception of NAVDA. Because Texas credentialed in 1977. I have been an intermittent member of NAVDA since its inception. When Texas finally developed a state organization, I've been an intermittent member of the state organization as well. Technician salaries, sometimes you have to pick and choose which membership you're going to be able to afford on a year-to-year basis. Because I have 2 VTS, I do have obligation to maintain membership in both of those academies. I maintain membership in IVAPM, relates to my anesthesia analgesia, and I maintain my membership in VEX. And so all told, in December, I'm starting to lay out close to $500 in annual dues and membership fees out of my pocket because I've never had an employer reimburse me for that. Okay, sorry, Patty.
Oh, so yeah, I feel the same way. I was glad that I was asked. Not afraid to speak out on what I believe. One of the things that I didn't mention was in the beginning, I felt like this was a possibly a good idea because, I see things, like a technician works on your car or a technician, does any number of things, anyone can do. But as I learned more about the process and especially the resources being spent, I changed my mind about how that might be better directed. My background is I've been in veterinary medicine since 1993 and since 2004. I've been involved on the board of the IVAPM on our California State Board and was sort of involved with the NAVTA district rep when it first started, but it had, challenges attending meetings. So that's, I think, now I'm working in emergency and critical care. I've taught, done a number of things.
So that's perfect because I do want to make sure we continue on, but I did want to give that credibility, and I'll have both Ed and Allie start the same way. Just as a quick reminder, so that is on one side. Oh, sorry, what, Patty?
I'm officially 1 minute late for work, so.
Oh yeah, okay, she's got to go. So Patty's going to go, but Katie's still on board. Thank you, Patty. So
thank you.
One of the things that we're now going to do is go over to the pro side, and we have Allie and Ed who are going to be jumping in. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. If you even have comments, that's completely great too. We'll carry those questions over to tomorrow, but I'm going to immediately now reset my stopwatch and Ed and Allie, turning it over to you.
I'm glad you have that under control, Catherine, because I was trying to guess what time did we start? Are we done now?
Okay, now I'm starting the stopwatch.
This is Bridge Club collaboration. We just talk to each other all the time.
Yeah, where's Ed? And oh, there's Ed. Ed, are you going first or Valley?
Sure, I'll go first. So my name's Ed Carlson. I'm a certified veterinary technician. I'm on the executive board of my state association in Massachusetts, as well as the state association in New Hampshire, where I grew up and spent a good part of my life. And I'm also a member of the Connecticut Association as well as being a VTS in nutrition. I've been involved with NAFTA for a number of years and served in a number of different capacities over that time. So I just want to thank the Bridge Club as well as Patricia and Katie for being involved in this discussion, giving us this opportunity to have this really important discussion as well. I'd also like to start with kind of some breaking news from Indiana that the RVN bill was heard by the State Agriculture Committee yesterday and received a favorable 8-1 vote, which sends the bill to the Senate floor. I also wanted to kind of start off my part of this with kind of stating the goals of the VNI. And those really are about a scope of practice, standardizing a credential, using one single credential in all states, and the proper use of that credential. And yes, a registered veterinary nurse is a credential that that NAFTA has determined what to move forward with. And I'm very much in support of that. So this initiative, though, is not simply about using the term nurse as our professional credential. I think that part of the misconception that has led to that thought process in some individuals is the strategy of the VNI to begin in states that already have a scope of practice, credentialing requirement, and title protection, where the final piece to meet the VNI goals really is about changing the credential to registered veterinary nurse. So all of those things, I think, could be leading to some of that misconception. I also believe, or at least really want to believe, that my fellow veterinary technicians across the country really do want a standard scope of practice, standard credentialing requirements, title protection, reciprocity from state to state, and the respect that we all deserve as veterinary professionals. And I'd also like to give kind of a brief timeline of what got us to this point. And my reasoning for doing that is, I hear things when I'm out speaking or on social media from some individuals. I hear, why all of a sudden are we promoting the term nurse? From other individuals, I hear, well, this has taken way too long. We surely should be moving forward faster. So again, just from a very high level, the timeline starting in July of 2014 at a NAFTA Leadership Summit, we started discussing, what should be a title? Should we have a unified title? Why aren't we using nurse? And a lot of that type of discussion. Really, I remember over 20 years ago working in small general practice and having discussions with my fellow technicians that why aren't we called nurses? Because we often are referring to ourselves as, well, we're kind of like a nurse for animals. And being told by some of the people that I work with or other individuals that, oh, the nurses won't let us. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but it kind of was the urban legend back then, and I think is being perpetuated today. In November of 2015, the National Credential Task Force was established, and that was the beginning of conversations with many stakeholders. I was lucky enough to be part of that task force, and that's what led me to eventually be part of the VNI working group. In May of 2016, we did some investigation of the nurse title protection. And really, initial legal counsel investigation outlines states that do have nurse title protection. Some do have these protections, some do not. But we'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a few minutes. In December of 2016, the National Credential Initiative survey was concluded. 81% supported or were neutral to the term veterinary nurse. That's 20% being neutral, with 61% being in support, only 19% being opposed. And I think with any type of change, we're never going to have 100%. So personally, I think that those are quite nice numbers. That report was submitted to the NAFTA board for guidance and for further direction. In May of 2017, the NAFTA board voted to pursue the RVN title, and that's when the VNI working group was established, and the animal policy group was hired as a lobbyist or strategic consultant, excuse me, for the VNI. So if the people speaking before us have talked a little bit about the difference between technician, really being more science and technology focused, versus nurse being really more patient and family focused. I do believe that that familiarity does help bring a clearer understanding to many people in the public. If we are using the title RVN, people will understand more easily what it is we do, educational standards, and that we've passed a national exam. I've spoken with credentialed veterinary technicians who are also RNs who know firsthand that they often are treated very differently in the veterinary hospital by those clients when they're introducing themselves as a veterinary technician versus working in the human field and introducing themselves as a registered nurse. They do see a difference in the respect. So is that going to be everyone within the general public? No, of course not. But I do think that it does show that this term is helpful in starting some of that elevation of our profession in the public's eyes. Having people better understand those distinct roles that different members of the veterinary health care team, the roles that they perform, really is what much of the VNI is about. Allie?
Thanks, Ed. I just wanted to mention that as we've heard from Patricia and Ed, there's the fact here that's important to remember. Right now, the only group that opposes us at the state legislatures are nursing associations. And their only argument is that they own the title nurse. It's interesting, however, that their doctor colleagues successfully share their titles in all 50 states. And as everybody knows, we have everything from doctors of medicine to doctors of dentistry, doctors of chiropractic, doctors of audiology, optometry, and of course, doctors of veterinary medicine. The list goes on and on. Truth be told, doctors share their title and there's no issue. No one is ever confused about what each of these specialists does, to whom or to what species for that matter. So we believe that the nurse's notion that they own the title nurse simply is not a compelling argument.
So yes, to reiterate that, so if the term doctor can be used by multiple professions with title protection in their respective professions, then why not the title nurse? So also, veterinary nurse is a more global title. Currently, the United States and Canada are the only two countries that I know of where the term veterinary technician is still used, where we have organized veterinary medicine. Really looking back at the human medical profession and the veterinary medical profession, we have very similar origins, starting with internships with nurses and technicians doing it all, then with much more organized education, and each profession became more specialized. And yes, I think that our human counterparts have become much more specialized than we have as veterinary professionals. But I do think when you look at the history of the human nurses and veterinary technicians, that you'll find they are very similar. Our profession is simply just years behind our counterparts. Today, the role of specialization in our profession is changing, and we believe we're going to continue to see more specialization. The educational pathways for veterinary technology programs and human nursing programs really are very similar. Allie?
Ed was mentioning the scope of tasks of vet techs and specialization. The VNI also wants to raise awareness regarding the underutilization of vet techs within the industry. As many of you know, studies have shown that vet techs are utilized at a 50% capacity compared to what they are trained to do. I personally don't know of another career where this is the case, and I can't imagine how frustrating that must be for those in this profession. We at the VNI believe that there are economic benefits to the Veterinary Nurse Initiative that will elevate the profession and create job satisfaction and, most importantly, retention. We believe it's a win-win for the vet tech, for the vet, the practice, and of course for the animals ultimately. With the change to the RVN title, pet owners, we believe, will have more confidence in and will spend more time engaging with their pet's veterinary nurse. And that will free up veterinarians to do what they do best, giving them more time to conduct in-depth exams, do surgical procedures, which would drive revenue growth. And we believe that RVNs will indeed be the benefit from those increased revenues, with increased salary adjustments, which would provide critical living wages and a sustainable career path that would fulfill them and support them. That's part of our goal.
So as the VNI promoted as we launch an initiative in a state that is helping to increase public awareness, continued increasing public awareness and public education is definitely needed. We definitely agree with that. And needs to, as I say, continue to increase to really educate the public as to our role within the veterinary healthcare team. All of these things that are driving many of our talented veterinary technicians to other fields, such as low wage, lack of respect, reciprocity from state to state, the value of their credential, the utilization or sometimes lack thereof, are all things that we feel that this initiative is helping to educate the public as we move forward. As I said, I've spoken to RNs who are also veterinary technicians. I've also spoken to our RNs who are not. And those professionals who understand what it is we do as veterinary technicians and the education process, as well as the national exam, are supportive of this initiative. There have been state associations, 3 of the veterinary medical associations and 4 of the veterinary technician associations that have issued public statements in the support of the VNI. Excuse me. Excuse me, I came back from VMX with a bit of a cold. My apologies. There also have been 16 organizations that have issued position statements, all of which are found on the VNI website. But just to name a few, Michigan State University, Purdue, Lincoln Memorial, AHA, Vet Partners. It's quite an impressive list. Purdue was the first veterinary program to change its veterinary veterinary technology degree rather to a veterinary nursing degree. Others are following. And to the point that's been brought up of how much money is being spent on the VNI, there have been 13 organizations and multiple individual NAFTA members who have made contributions to the VNI for a total of $189,139 in 2018. So moving forward, what are we looking for? So in Ohio, we're going to continue moving forward there. We had a bit of political turbulence last year where the majority of the bills in the House were not being seen, were not being argued on the floor, not just the VNI. The VNI did pass overwhelmingly with support in the House, but just ran out of time to actually make it to the Senate floor before the end of the political cycle. And so that bill is going to be reintroduced in 2019. Indiana, we have great support. As I mentioned, we've already seen that just this week. And through the efforts of the Indiana VMA, the Indiana Veterinary Technician Association in Purdue, we expect to be moving forward there in the legislature as well. We'll also be moving forward in Georgia. We have tremendous support in that state, and we'll be starting 2019 with a bill being introduced into the House and Senate. So really the VNI is shedding light on challenges that we face every day, things that we haven't really been as vocal about at a national level, about the challenges that we find in the veterinary field. A lot of this discussion, if you will, whether it be positive or negative about the VNI, really is bringing awareness to our cause. I do think that having a little bit of this type of debate is very healthy for not only our profession, but also for helping the general public to understand what it is we do. We're all going to be better off because of this, whether you agree with the term veterinary nurse or you prefer the term veterinary technician. But I hope that you can all agree that moving forward with something that is looking to have a standard practice act with a standard scope of practice and title protection across the country, so that not only can, from a national perspective, we can be moving forward with trying to elevate our profession, but also then the states themselves helping with this. We're seeing this as we move into each states. Many of you may have seen some of the promotional materials that have been launched in Ohio, for example, with there being some really nice videos put forth. Those were intended to help educate the public and the so no, this isn't going to happen overnight. Nothing with this scope, magnitude, and importance is going to happen quickly. It's going to take time, but I'm confident that once one or two states adopt the RVN title, momentum will pick up and others will follow. As an analogy, I like to use, when I've been doing VNI presentations, the concept of same-sex marriage. So regardless of your views on that, it started as nowhere in the country could two people of the same sex marry. Over time, one or two states started to make a change, and then we saw that domino effect where now same-sex marriage is legal in the entire United States. We're going to see the same thing happen with the RVN initiative. Thank you all for listening to me. Allie, do you have anything else to say?
I just wanted to thank everybody as well and put a plug out there, a reminder to visit the veterinarynurse.org website. We try to keep it updated as much as we can. As we start in additional states, we will add advocacy materials and other promotional materials that we can, so you can keep checking back there. And I know we look forward to your questions tomorrow.
So before I turn this over, you guys, thank you so very much. And you guys were a little shorter on your time, but that's fantastic. Is that I love that people are putting stuff in the chat. Go for it. This is your top opportunity. And when Mark finishes and we finish on this, I will actually stay on a little longer. So more questions can be put in there, because once I close down, then there's no question unless you all email Brenda or I, because these questions will be answered tomorrow. I will indicate before I turn over to Mark, all questions will be answered. So we actually, if we run out of time on the session, we scheduled a second one that'll just be to get through all the questions. So I just want to let you know.
Okay. I was just gonna say, so if you've not registered for tomorrow's session, in the meantime, different link, it is a separate registration. So we'd love to have you all back so you can the answers to some of these questions and maybe ask ones too.
So I think someone's got a dog barking, which is totally cool normally, but what I'm going to do is ask that you mute your line, because at this point, Mark's going to be our last speaker besides myself and Brenda. So I am going to turn this over to Mark. We are going to give, you've seen in the chat all of the resources. Mark's going to go through those as well so that everyone knows that they have them. So Mark, I'm going to go ahead and reset my timer. Go for it, Mark.
Wait.
Oh, you're muted, Mark. You got muted.
He's like, you're free. You're free, Mark. Go ahead.
You're free, Mark.
Catherine, you're not the only organization that's wanted to mute me over the years. So you join an illustrious club, so congratulations. What I want to do is summarize for people the arguments or the points that have been made on both sides and not comment on them or debate them. But not all of you may have joined right from the start, and we had very vigorous and thoughtful presentation by two credentialed vet techs that we'll just say question or not are in agreement with or support the current Veterinary Nurse Initiative. Obviously very much support the progress in improving the state of affairs across the country for all credentialed vet techs and people in the veterinary profession. So let me summarize the points made on both sides just as takeaways for people, and you don't have to jot these down, but I think I want to highlight this. A great conversation, by the way. I want to start with the two areas that would appear both groups, that is all four speakers, agreed. And while it's clear that there are more points of disagreement than agreement, it bears mentioning where there appears to be clear agreement. And that would be number one, which was the first point made by Patty from California, that both sides agree that the typical, not every, but too many veterinary practices across the country underutilize their credentialed vet techs. Underutilized meaning they're trained to do long list of procedures and services, yet they're utilized perhaps as low as at the 50% level. And that doesn't seem to serve anybody's interests and is very demotivating. And that would appear to be a priority of all four speakers, and that's getting more and more attention every day, I think, around the country. Secondly, both groups agree that awareness, increasing awareness, both within the public or pet owners as well as within the veterinary world, is important if you want to improve the status and the job satisfaction and overall utilization of credentialed vet techs. And there doesn't seem to be any disagreement on the value of awareness. The VNI group tells you how they're trying to promote awareness. And there were questions raised, of course, as to whether, by the other two speakers, as to whether the awareness was effective. So everybody can decide that. When you look at the discussion from Kate and from Patty, a good deal of attention was paid to a topic that's hard to capture in 20 minutes, but I think they did a very good job, which is their belief or hope that any step forward by vet techs, and I'm using the common term, but by credentialed vet techs, and by credentialed vet techs, we're referring to RVTs, LVTs, CVTs, or Tennessee had to do one better and do LVMTs. But in any event, they're very focused on trying to get the American Nursing Association, which by their admission is a very powerful political organization with a lot of money, to try to get that organization in sync. You clearly heard from the VNI speakers that the Nursing Association politically is opposing it because they claim they own the title nurse and that nobody else should use it. And one of the criticisms of the VNI is that it is adversarial with nurses and should not proceed, if you will, until every effort's made to work out some type of an agreement with nurses so they could be on the same side. And obviously we'll leave it to you all to decide if that's realistic or a good goal, but that was one of the themes we heard a good deal about. There was also a criticism of the VNI that despite a public goal of NAVTA to unite the profession, that it's had the opposite effect of fracturing the profession. And the fracturing appeared to be a function of not every vet tech agrees, therefore it's taking a position that many vet techs, the percentage to be determined, oppose, and that it is, as they have said, picking somewhat of a fight with the nurses that doesn't promote strengthening, but actually can cause just the opposite. There was also questions about the percentage of credentialed vet techs nationally that support this, and you heard a view that from the opponents, if you will, of the VNI, that the percentages either aren't that impressive or maybe overstated. They're not implying that they were intentionally overstated, but the surveys themselves may not have been valid or accurate, and more surveys are needed. And there was also a view that the nature of the outreach to the credentialed vet tech community has been inadequate, and there needs to be more of it, but that what's been done so far has not been inadequate, and that there shouldn't be too much claimed for it. There was a concern that a figure of $250,000 was used that's been spent by the VNI rather, and that should have been spent on public awareness. And if $250,000 or so was spent, that a great deal could have been achieved if awareness of what credentialed vet techs do. And that leads to one of the last points about which Kate spent a great deal of time and really made presented a lot of examples of, that the term technician is a good term, it's a useful term, and there should be no hesitance on the part of the profession to stick with the term technician in some manner and not utilize the term nurse. And I want to get this very clear because it's important that my summary be accurate, but it would appear that the criticism is that the name nurse is simply not desirable. They're not saying nurses don't do good work around the country, but that the term nurse is too limited a description of what credentialed vet techs do. And Patty made the question that in the two examples she saw in California, just two cases she cited, nobody seemed to be particularly impressed by or persuaded by or acting any different if they thought they were dealing with a nurse. And I will say that would appear to be a fundamental difference between the critics of the VNI and the supporters of the VNI. And of course, the point was made finally that the American Nursing Association would be much happier if the term nurse was not used. And the closing point was that if you change the title to nurse, it doesn't guarantee anything. The pro vote, the point was made that the goal of the VNI covers all the goals that the critics would want: standardization, uniform credentials, title enforcement, and reciprocity. They recognize that some people think that VNI goes too slow, some think it goes too fast, but that in 2016 they found a significantly higher level of support for using the term registered veterinary nurse, and that's what they have decided to lead with. And they cite examples of people who are both RNs on the human side and RVTs on the pet side, who get a great deal more respect from colleagues and from the clients in the human context with the name registered nurse. The point was made that there were multiple doctor titles used throughout the human health profession with no issues or confusion, and the VNI questions why the term nurse would be given a higher different status that can't be used by anybody but a human nurse. The point was made by Ed that the education of credentialed vet techs and of credentialed nurses is quite comparable, and that the history of the two professions has more in common than difference, so that title change could lead to greater public understanding of what a registered veterinary nurse does, which would allow pet owners to want to spend more time, take more advice, get more services from those professionals, which ultimately should lead to greater success. And I see a 0, which is such a harsh sign, Catherine. I can't imagine you want to say goodbye on that basis. So the point was made that the VNI has spent $189,000, not $250,000, and is currently active in Ohio, Indiana, and Georgia legislatures with a Senate committee victory yesterday in Indiana. And the hope is that a domino effect will occur once a number of states are on board. Thank you, Catherine and Brenda, for having the idea of the Bridge Club and letting me do a summary. I hope that was fair to all.
So
Right.
with that, everybody, we are officially at our 1 hour mark. So I want to be very responsive to everyone's time because I know that's really critical here. I'm going to stay on a little longer. Pour in the questions, everybody. We're not kidding. We have time set aside for tomorrow. And then if we don't get through them, we're going to immediately answer them afterwards. So this is the opportunity. You have a question, put it in there. Be as descriptive as possible so that we can help answer it. If you've got comments and questions for Brenda and I, please let us know as well. I really, I know Patty had to go off, but Katie and Mark and Allie and Ed, I just can't thank you guys enough for joining in. I know this is a really tough topic. And so I'm really grateful that everyone can do it. 10:30 tomorrow, it is the exact same login, guys. So if you lose it and you haven't registered, please register, but it's the exact same login link. So you could use that. And I say that to all of you. And we do have capacity for folks tomorrow.
Yes, and the questions is counted. All the questions you're posting right now are captured. We will be able to have all of these. In fact, you see me holding up my little phone here to record the tail end of this because I'm kind of afraid we may have run out of some recording time on our Zoom, and I want to make sure we captured everything. But heartfelt thanks to everybody who cares about this subject, who has the passion to take the time this morning and tomorrow to participate and listen and learn a little bit, and to help inform your decisions and help you decide what you do or don't want to support. That really means a lot to the profession and a lot to us at the Bridge Club that you took the time to be here and to be a participant in your future, not just letting it happen. So,
Absolutely. So